Hello, everybody. This is Thor, and today we are going to be taking a look at Princess Diana's chart. And the reason we're taking a look at Princess Diana's chart is I completed watching the first four seasons of The Crown on Netflix, and I was very interested in if The Crown was accurately portraying Princess Diana and King Charles, formerly known as Prince Charles, their relationship. I was wondering, was it accurately portrayed? And was the relationship with the royal family being accurately portrayed in the series? So today we're going to be taking a look at Princess Diana's chart to see if we can get some of the psycho-emotional data and experience through the chart and really see what was going on there. Also, what's exciting is there's going to be the fifth season of The Crown being released next month in November. So this is kind of a good refresher or just a reminder and looking at Princess Diana. So this should be pretty exciting. For those of you guys that are new to my channel, please like and subscribe. I do Vedic sidereal astrology for those of you guys that are new. It's not Western tropical astrology, which is typically associated with horoscopes. Usually, the Western tropical astrology is the type of horoscopes you see in newspapers. That's not Vedic astrology. Vedic astrology, we actually need your day of birth, month of birth, the year you were born, the time you were born, and the place you were born, and your sign can be all different signs during the day. So that's how much precision we have with Vedic astrology. My goal is 10,000 subscribers, and if you guys are interested in a private reading, please check for details down below. So what I'm hoping to do with this reading is we're going to pull up the chart. We're going to make a note of a few things about Princess Diana, and then what we're going to do is we're really going to try to answer that question. What was the relationship like with King Charles? And also, what was the relationship like with the royal family? So this should be quite interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the chart for you all right now. Here's the chart of Princess Diana. And the first thing we're going to notice is that Diana is a Scorpio ascendant. So ruled by the planet Mars, and you'll notice that it's in the 10th house here. And isn't it interesting that when we were watching The Crown, and this is probably how they first met, everything in the show seemed pretty accurate. When they met when Charles was going on a date with Diana's sister, I believe, that's when he first runs into Diana. And Diana's wearing some sort of costume, and she's involved in theater or some sort of dancing or something like that. Well, that's really involved. That's really what Mars in the 10th house is all about. So people that have Mars in the 10th house or Mars in the first house tend to be people that they're into performance arts, something where they're using their body, they're using their movement. Ballet dancers are usually people that have Mars in the first house or the 10th house. People in any type of theater, stage plays, that's all part of it. And we see that that was a large part of The Crown. And I even remember when Diana was trying to patch things up with Charles, and she made that, what was it, a video of her singing some sort of song, and then he was actually making fun of it, which was quite a sad part of the show. But performance arts. And then we got Rahu here in the 10th house. There's actually a strong desire here for public attention. So even though we know she was very displeased with certain aspects of it, especially in the beginning when they met and they were engaged, and she was basically, in a room in Buckingham Palace, there is this idea of she did desire fame, and the Rahu in the sign of Leo is a desire for fame. And well, it's a good way to get it through, being part of the royal family. Now, it doesn't mean there was any type of narcissism or anything like that there. It just shows that there was a desire to be in the spotlight in some way. So in some ways, this could have been fulfilled with Diana. If she would have became, let's say she worked on Broadway, that could have been fulfilled. So there's nothing negative about that. One thing I wanted to point out is that if we look at the fourth house of Diana's chart, you'll notice that K2 and Moon are there. And when K2 is there, it does show a level of disinterest for that area of life. And so I found this very interesting was this fact of K2 being in the fourth house shows somebody that does not like sitting at home. And so when they had that scene of Diana being in Buckingham Palace and being really bored, that's absolutely supported by the chart. That she couldn't stand just sitting in one place and being at home. She has to be out doing things. Mars and Rahu in the 10th house. Also, there is a disconnection with the mother figures in her life. So the fourth house and the moon are both representative of our relationship with our mothers. So there may have been a disconnected relationship with Diana's actual mother, but also this could show why she may have had this kind of disconnection with the queen. There was just this apathy there, or this lack of interest, or there wasn't really a connection there with motherly or matriarchal type figures because of K2 being with Moon and K2 being in the fourth house. Okay, so now we are going to take a look at what the marriage was like from Diana's point of view using the chart. And we're going to be using the D1 chart, and then we're going to be using the Navamsa chart to really get a view of that. So let's take a look right now. So the first thing we look at when we're looking at a marriage is we're going to look at the seventh house. This is the public view of the marriage. This is how people view the marriage on a social material level. And you'll notice Venus is there. And Venus is one of the benefic planets. It's such a charming and graceful, and Venus is the planet that everybody thinks is great in the world. It's a Rajasic planet, and it's the planet of charm and getting what you want, a fairy tale type of wedding. When Charles and Diana were married, if you remember in the early 80s, it was a really big deal. It was televised, the whole world was watching it, and it seemed like, this fairy tale type of wedding. That's really what it seemed like. So this is how the world saw it, with Venus there in the seventh house. That's quite interesting. But that doesn't represent the emotional aspect of the marriage, and that's what we're going to take a look at. So on a social material level, everyone was happy. And I even remember that part in the show where they go on this tour and they're visiting Australia, and the people in Australia absolutely love Princess Diana. And Charles is basically kind of angry that she's more in the spotlight than him, and there's some arguing that's happening because of that. So this is actually going to show that. So the other aspect when we're looking at marriages, we just don't look at the seventh house. We look at what is the emotional experience, because most people's experience of a marriage is emotional, not what society, the social material factor of it. So we go from the moon, and this is something you can do in your own charts if you're married or in a significant, long-term relationship. You count 7 houses from the moon. And when you count 7 houses from the moon, this is going to represent the emotional orientation of the marriage. And what you'll notice is there's Mars there and there's Rahu there. So these are both considered malefic planets or cruel planets. So there is the 10th house of Leo. There's a lot of fame coming through the marriage. So emotionally, she's feeling the fame. But also, look at this. With Mars being there, this could be quite a bit of argumentativeness. Okay. And if we look at Mars, it rules the 6th house of the chart. There's also the partner, there's jealousy from the partner. As we saw in the series, this is actually reflected in the chart, jealousy coming from the partner, and maybe because Diana had more of the spotlight. So there was a script of jealousy in this. And then we have Rahu there. There's something very unusual about the partner. And I think, what my interpretation of this would be is this unusual relationship that Princess Diana marries Charles, and she knows there's this relationship going on with Camilla. Rahu is the taboo type of thing, or the unusual type of influence that's happening in the marriage. So that is very much supported. So the Mars aspect is going to show there was a lot of arguing. So that's true. There was a lot of arguing behind closed doors because of the Mars issue. The other thing we can look at when we're looking at a marriage is we look at the Navamsa chart. This is really a chart we look at when we look at marriage. And we look at the first house of the Navamsa. And then we look at the seventh house of the Navamsa chart, okay? And what we're going to notice is, you'll notice the sun is there. So there is this, there is this idea of being a central figure and getting a lot of attention through the marriage. Remember, the Navamsa, I'm going to back up for a second, is really your psycho-emotional expectations of events. So this chart, the D1 chart, is going to represent the physical manifestation of events that are happening. And the Navamsa chart is going to be your psycho-emotional expectation. Sometimes it doesn't line up with reality. So your psycho-emotional experience of something might not actually reflect reality. So we see a lot of fame coming through it with Sun being in the first house. But look, Saturn's there in the first house. So there is this idea of frustration, absolute frustration, and a feeling of oppression in the marriage. So in a lot of ways, even though people on the outside might have been thinking, she married a royal. Wow, this is incredible. On the inside, she's feeling with Saturn in the first house of the Navamsa, wow, this feels really oppressive. I'm having to give up a lot of myself for the royal family and, what it represents. And so she felt oppressed, like her individuality was oppressed. Look at that, because Saturn is there with Sun. And Saturn being with Sun can also show there was a lot of statements made or comments made where the ego was definitely invalidated often. So there was a script of invalidation through this marriage. So emotionally, it was very difficult. Anytime you would see Saturn involved in the Navamsa of the marriages, it shows a very oppressive type of atmosphere, at least from the perspective of Princess Diana. Remember, this is all perspective. Now, the other thing that we're going to look at is we're going to look at the relationship with the royal family that Diana had. And what we're going to look at first of all is we look at the 8th house to really represent in-laws in a chart. So the 8th house is pretty infamous. And the first thing you'll notice is that Sun is there. And Sun is the 10th house. Okay, royalty. So this family is really powerful. The Sun represents power and authority, royalty, all those type of things. So that's obvious, right? But we're going to notice that Mercury is there in the 8th house of in-laws, and Mercury is the 8th lord. So that gives us a little bit of a clue. There's a lot of secrets. So there's a lot of things, at least from the standpoint of Diana, the family is very secretive in some sort of way. So there might have been some things where the family was maybe having meetings behind closed doors and Diana wasn't invited to those meetings. That's the type of idea I get. So this is, secretive type family. Maybe she never really felt fully part of it because of that. And I think that's not really that hard to guess, right? The other thing we can look at is if we look at the relationship with the in-laws in the Navamsa chart, what we'll notice, there's no planets there, but we will notice that Mars is aspecting the 8th house of the Navamsa chart. So this actually shows that, from the perspective of Diana, maybe the family seemed kind of aggressive or really pushy, because that's what Mars energy is like. It's like you're getting, you're pushed into making decisions, or maybe the family even seemed quite boisterous. I was surprised when I was watching The Crown when they would go to Balmoral and they would have these games and they would be actually quite, in some cases, they look quite like a normal family. They're playing board games and things like that. And they were pretty loud and boisterous. For example, when Margaret Thatcher came and visited. in that awkward situation. But with Princess Diana, it could show that she really observed that, but also that maybe she felt like they were kind of pushy because of Mars aspect. But overall, I mean, it wasn't a total negative view there. I mean, with the sun being there and the sun is the 10th Lord, it's not a total negative view of the royal family. I feel that most of the negative experience actually came through the marriage itself. That's what the chart seems to be indicating. So that's what we got looking at Princess Diana's chart. And unfortunately, Diana's not around today to make future predictions. But I thought that it would be really interesting to look at this chart in light of the 5th season of The Crown coming out. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. And if you have any questions or any suggestions for future chart readings, also include that down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.